My name is Glenda Kaufman.
And I'm Cynthia Gensheimer. I'm going to be interviewing Glenda today. And today is January 20th, 2024. And we're here in the building where Glenda lives on the first floor in a common area. And Glenda, what was your maiden name?
Finkelstein, Finkelstein.
And what are the names of your mother and father?
Betty and Dave.
And tell us just a tiny bit about them. Where were they born?
Oh gosh. They were both born in Europe and came to the United States. My mother ended up in Pennsylvania and my father ended up in Oklahoma.
And where were you born?
I was born in Pampa, Texas. A little town in the top of Texas. Lived there till I went to college.
So were you one of the few Jewish families in that town?
There were 4 Jewish families in Pampa, Texas.
And were you related to any of the others?
Was not related, no.
And how did your parents wind up there, or what brought them there?
Well, my father was in the oil field supplies, and I guess he was driving from Oklahoma down through the top of Texas and discovered that Pampa was a good place to have that business.
So was there a Jewish congregation there?
In Amarillo, about 60 miles away.
Whoa. So how often did you go there?
Mainly for the high holidays.
So you did not go to Sunday school or anything?
Well, actually I did. Now that you mention it. I did go to Sunday school there.
So they would drive you 60 miles each way?
They would drive me, yes, every week. And one of my non-Jewish friends always went with me. And she learned Hebrew better than I did.
Well, that's quite a story. Did you have brothers or sisters?
I had my brother was the oldest. And then I have 2 sisters who live in Dallas. My brother has passed away.
So they would all go with you? The 4 children plus your friend would all go to Sunday school together?
I think one of my sisters and I are the only ones that went at the same time.
And what kind of a congregation was it there? Was it Reform or?
It was more conservative.
Uh-huh. So were you confirmed or did you have a bat mitzvah?
No, I was confirmed.
Mm-hmm.
And one time we were at services and a bunch of us went outside to just visit. Came back in and the rabbi's wife grabbed me and said, "Sit down."
Seems like everybody has a story like that.
Exactly.
Wow. So was it your mother or your father who would drive you there?
Mother.
And was she the one who really felt it was more important?
I don't know, I think they both did.
Mm-hmm.
I really do. Even though we lived in a town with very few Jewish people, they felt very strongly about their religion.
And what would she do while you were at Sunday school? Do you have any idea?
I think she probably visited with some of the other parents.
Mm-hmm. And then at home, was it an observant household? Did they keep
I'm
kosher? Did your mother keep kosher at home?
No. They both came from kosher families, but they did not keep kosher when they married.
And when you were in elementary school and high school, was your religion a subject of curiosity, or do you have any stories about that?
When I was a senior in high school, someone vandalized our house a little bit.
Do you think it had to do with the fact that you were Jewish?
Oh, I know it did.
So,
and I didn't know who it was until probably 10 years ago.
Oh, how did you find out?
A friend of mine finally told me.
So what was done to your house?
I painted a swastika.
Oh my goodness, whoa. And how did your parents react?
My father was a good friend of the police chief and called him and he said, "Dave, just take it off and don't make a thing about it." And never anything was ever talked about it again. And so he was probably right, being in a small town.
Did it shake you up?
Yeah, I think it bothered all of us a lot.
But did children in school call you names or anything like that?
I don't remember ever being called a name because I was Jewish. I know that there were young guys who could not date me because I was Jewish, but I mean, it was never talked about.
And what year did you graduate from high
Oh
school?
gosh. 1960?
Okay. And then what did you do after high school?
Well, let's see. I went to the University of Texas for 2 years, and then I had met my husband-to-be, and he lived here in Denver, and he went to the University of Colorado, and so I transferred my junior year to the University of Denver, and I finished at the University of Denver.
So when you were in college, were you a member of a sorority or,
At Texas, I was in 85.
and was that a Jewish sorority?
Mm-hmm. But
And
when I came to DU, they didn't have any.
uh-huh. So what did being a member of that sorority entail? Was it mostly social?
It was mainly social, yeah. I mean, they did some things in the community that they helped, I think, with children, and it's been so long ago, but I know that we did some work in the community.
So you came to Colorado in the 1960s then?
Yes. Got married in 1963, so I must have been here in 1961, I think.
And did you get involved with NCJW right away?
I've been involved with NCJW since probably 1973.
Did you have children at that time?
I had 2 daughters. They were born. One was born in '68, and one was born in '70. Does that sound right? Yeah.
So were you working before your daughters were born?
I was a speech therapist. Yes, in the Cherry Creek schools.
And
But
did
then
you
when I
go
got
ahead.
pregnant at that time, you could only teach for a few months. They wouldn't let you teach very long. And I never went back to teaching. I became a volunteer for life.
And was NCJW the primary focus of your volunteer work?
It was for many, many years, yes. And then I was on the Jewish Community Relations Council, and I was involved with that.
So what was your entry point to NCJW? Do you remember who it was who got you interested or what it was that drew you to the organization?
I had a sister-in-law, Sue Kaufman, who was involved, and she's the one who got me started.
And what did you begin by doing? Were you just attending functions and things like that?
Yeah, I mainly went to functions and stuff, and then I joined Children's Traveling Theater. And I was a member of Children's Traveling Theater for nearly 12 years.
And so you were an actress?
Yes, it was a lot of fun.
And
And my favorite role was Dopey.
tell us about that.
Children loved Dopey because Dopey was so funny. So it was really a fun role.
It was just fun to make them laugh.
It was definitely fun to make them laugh. Yes.
And do you remember any schools in particular that you went to?
All the Denver public schools.
And did you feel that you made the same level of impact wherever you went?
I think so. Even though some schools, the children had never seen plays, I still think the schools where kids were able to do that still enjoyed it and had fun watching it.
And was it difficult to prepare for the plays with or did you
We had
enjoy
a lot of rehearsal time, yes.
But it was a group of friends who got together and so it was pleasant?
It was people from National Council of Jewish Women. It was their Children's Traveling Theater.
Right. And you were able to did you feel it was competitive in any way, or you could, did you have to audition for roles?
Oh yeah, you had to audition for the roles, which was funny sometimes. But usually most people knew what they wanted to, what roles they wanted, so it wasn't terribly competitive.
And you reused costumes, did that work out?
Oh yes, we definitely had costumes.
So you did that for 12 years, and did you, over that time, become interested in other things too?
Yeah, I was involved with, excuse me, I worked out at our bargain corner for a while, which we had for many years. And I was president for 2 years. And I was the state public affairs chair for 3 years. So that meant I went down to the legislature and watched on the, the floor to see what bills were being talked about. And sometimes if we had a particular bill that we were interested in, sometimes I had to talk about it in committee meeting.
Oh, that's interesting. So you were invited to committee meetings as a
Yes.
representative of NCJW?
Yes, yeah.
And you would prepare written comments and read
Yes,
them?
yes,
And then were you questioned afterwards?
of course.
And do you remember any of those that were of particular interest?
It's been so many years ago. Honestly, I don't remember. I mean, obviously children and family issues were a big thing that National Council of Jewish Women, that we worked on down at the legislature.
Right, so things like child care
Yes.
and health issues?
Right, exactly.
And was there any president that you served under who you found was particularly inspiring? NCJW president?
Yeah, probably.
And then in terms of the legislature, were there particular members of the legislature who you worked closely with?
There were, but I honestly don't remember their names,
That's
which is
okay.
embarrassing.
That's
But yes, there were 2 or 3 that were very helpful with me and helped me a lot.
And so would you go over how would you know when issues that were of key concern to you were going to be debated or subject, when you needed to go down to the legislature?
Well, I went down pretty much every morning.
Every day that
Just
the
about every
legislature was
day.
in session?
The only day I didn't go down was Tuesdays because I was in children's traveling theater.
Oh my-
Otherwise, I was down at the legislature every morning.
So this was like a full-time job
It
for
was
you?
it was like a full-time job, a non-paid full-time job.
Right, no benefits other than what accrued to you personally
Right.
and to the
It was
organization.
very interesting, it really was. And
So-
like I said, I was able to work closely with the legislators.
So you were there, did you have a particular place that you sat every time you went? Like a seat?
During the big sessions, you usually sat upstairs. In the smaller sessions of the afternoon, where they debated certain bills, they were small rooms. They had a bunch of rooms. So you just sat around a table.
So it would be you and members of the press, or were there other?
Mainly the legislators and other people that were down there to talk about the issues.
And I'm still curious
Yes.
as to how you were received there, because I imagine there were professional lobbyists who were paid to be there on certain issues.
Yes,
like,
there were.
and
And I worked closely with them, and I would say most of the lobbyists were paid. But there were a few of us that represented either a church or
a nonprofit.
a nonprofit.
So who would you be aligned with in terms of the lobbyists?
Oh gosh.
So you don't need to name names, but are you talking about people who were involved in the health industry or?
Yeah, both health, education, the Lutheran Church. We did a lot of similar things. That's mainly who we worked with.
So they were aligned with you in terms of advocating for services for
Yes.
children and?
Children, families, yes, definitely. And we would work together many times.
That's interesting.
Yeah. And we obviously would work closely with the legislators too, especially the legislators who were presenting that bill that we were interested in. We worked closely with them.
I'm trying to think of the kinds of issues that would come before a state legislature as opposed to a national legislature. Some things like benefits that the state might provide or services that the state would provide. Today we would think of preschool or
Right.
and that sort of thing.
Yes, anything to do with children, anything to do with families, health. Yeah, just about most issues that you would see nationally, states also deal with those issues, but on a different level.
So daycare was
yes.
one of them. Planned Parenthood, is that the sort of issue that you got involved with?
We worked with them, Planned Parenthood, sometimes, depending on the issue, for sure.
Well, I really admire your dedication, and the state legislature honored you at some point, right?
Yes, I was very fortunate. I received, in 1990, I was down there from 87 to 90, and in 1990, I received a commendation from the legislature.
Oh, congratulations.
He took a picture of it.
That's nice. And so you would make periodic reports back to the National Council of
yes.
Jewish Women?
Definitely.
And did you ever attend any NCJW conventions outside of Denver?
I did. I went once to Washington, D.C.
And was that helpful to you?
It was really interesting because you got to meet other people from other sections who were involved usually in many of the same things. And so you received a lot of help from them, and you were able to give them information that helped them also on the issues that we were dealing with.
And in terms of NCJW, eventually you received the Hannah G. Solomon Award also,
I did.
right?
In 2011.
And was that primarily for the work you had done with the legislature?
I think it was just everything I had done for National Council of Jewish Women.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that was part of it, but I was also president, and so yeah, a little bit of everything.
So your involvement spanned decades, really, right?
Oh yeah.
And it began.
Ask my daughters. They would tell you.
So they were they were teenagers when you were doing the legislative work? Or just out of the house?
Well, let's see. Karen was born in 68. So yeah.
So it was the end of high school, maybe, for them.
Right.
That was interesting. So it began as kind of a part-time job, if you want to think of it that way, with
Right.
Children's Traveling Theater. And what did you do with the bargain
Corner?
bargain corner?
I would go down there and help sell clothes.
So these were used clothes that
Yes, they were used. Bargain Corner was used clothes, and we had a program called Dress for Less, and women who were going into the workplace, we would bring them down to the Bargain Corner and give them clothes that they could use to go to their jobs, because most of them didn't have anything that was very useful for a job. So we were able to help them in that respect.
And how did these women find out about you, or how did you find out about them for Dress for Less?
Trying to remember. I think because of our bargain corner, some of the women must have came in there and told us about other women in the community who would need this help. And that's really word of mouth.
It seems like an extraordinary service that you provided.
I feel that it was at the time, I really do.
So did you also offer advice, or, as to what looked better on them, or?
Yeah, if they would always ask.
Right.
Yeah, they always like for you to help them and help pick out something that would be appropriate for work.
So what kinds of jobs did most of these people have? Do you have any sense of that?
Oh my gosh. I think some of them were secretarial work, and I'm not sure where some of the others were working at the time. Like I said, it's been so long ago.
Right.
I'm not sure that I can answer that one very well.
Well, that's okay. And at the same time, did you belong to a congregation here in Denver?
Yeah, when our oldest daughter was like second grade, we joined Temple Emmanuel, and I'm still a member of Temple Emmanuel.
And then you said eventually you became on the board of the Jewish
Jewish Community Relations Council. Yeah, I'm still involved with JCRC.
And can you just explain to me the nature of the work that they do?
Oh gosh. JCRC, it's hard to explain. They deal with issues, obviously, that are concerning to the Jewish community. And they have people from probably every organization, and then other individuals who sit around the table who give advice and talk about what they feel needs to be done in the Jewish community. And then we try to get involved in whatever that might be.
So if there are complaints about anti-Semitism, that would be one of the sorts of things that you would deal with?
Yeah, of course ADL does most of that, but we would obviously hear about it and discuss certain things.
So if there were an issue, did you try to do any education or outreach to Christians in the area?
There were committees that did that, yes. I was not on any of those committees, but yes.
So what has your role been with the organization?
Oh gosh. Well, I was very involved. We'd have a candidates forum every year, and I was very involved in setting that up and getting that planned. And so that was one of the big things I did for many years.
Is that independent of the NCJW Candidates Forum, or is it something that they do together?
We did it together sometimes.
So you would bring in candidates and they would have tables set up with information?
Yeah, the local candidates, we would have tables set up with their information, and you could go around and meet them and talk to them. Usually the actual candidates forum were like people running for mayor or Congress.
So they would have a chance to give a little speech and answer questions?
Yeah, they were, yes.
Mm-hmm. Those statewide and national
In front
candidates?
of everybody.
Uh-huh.
But then, like I said before that, there were always tables set up that the state people had a table, and you could go and meet whoever you wanted to and just talk to them.
Yeah, I've been to those, and I think it's a wonderful service that you provide. to the community. So that was one of the things that you were most involved with?
I was pretty involved with that for a long time,
And then
through JCRC.
otherwise you were just and I don't want to
Right.
mean to minimize it, you were just a board member or
Of
JC.
JCRC, yes.
Did you ever face any anti-Semitism as an adult living in Denver?
I don't believe I have.
And are you still an NCJW member?
I'm still an NCJW member. I'm a life member. I will always be a member. I'm not as involved, but
Right.
I'm definitely still a member.
So can you explain what kind of a difference NCJW made in your life?
First of all, I think it made me realize how important my Judaism is to me. And it was wonderful getting to know other women, Jewish women who believed in the same ideals that I did and wanted to work for them and help the community.
And do you feel in terms of your legislative work that from time to time you did have a positive impact in the sense that legislation was passed that perhaps was a little different than it might have been had you not been involved?
I think so, definitely. And I can't, there were legislators, it was interesting because I was able to get friendly and get along with all the legislators. And that was very interesting because they came from such different backgrounds and political views. But I was able to forget about what their views, their political might be, and still work closely with them.
So it was a time when people worked together across the aisle and could have civil discourse.
At times, not always, but yes, at times they did.
So was that, do you think, it must have been in part because you had a genial personality and you were a likable person?
That I'm not sure. Hopefully, yes.
So at that time, Colorado was a much more Republican state than it is now, right?
Yeah, I think it was at the time. But like I said, I was fortunate to become friendly with both sides of the aisle.
And
Even though I didn't agree with a lot of one side, but yes.
And then when you stepped down from that position, was there somebody else from NCJW who took over for you?
Yes, we've always had a state public affairs chair for many years.
And the others, the ones who preceded you and followed you, were they there every day of the legislature the way you were?
I doubt it. I don't believe they were. I mean, I know they went down there, yes, but I don't think too many people spent as much time as I did down there.
So,
But I felt it was important.
you felt it was important, and it must have been something that you enjoyed too, I imagine.
I did. I really did. Like I said, I loved representing National Council of Jewish Women, and I really enjoyed meeting the legislators and other lobbyists. I was one of the few unpaid lobbyists, but I was very, close to some of the other lobbyists, and it was most interesting time of my life, I will have to say.
And did you get to know people who were on the staffs of the legislators also?
A few, yes.
I can understand what you're talking about because my first job was working at the Congressional Budget Office in Washington, D.C.
Oh, wow.
And I was an economist who was analyzing tax issues, but
Okay.
it was the same sort of thing. And some of the issues were so complex that the lobbyists knew more about them than staff members.
Oh, I'm sure of that, yeah.
So,
I can understand that.
but I was paid for what I did.
Right. No, I've been an unpaid volunteer my whole life.
And what did you?
Unfortunately, I was able to do it.
Well, that was going to be my next question.
Yes.
I was trying to think of a tactful way to ask it, but I assume your family was supportive of your doing that.
Yes, I think so. Very supportive.
Well,
My husband was at the time,
well, that's good.
and my children didn't complain very often about it.
That's great. And so, did you belong to any other Jewish organizations? I'm just about done with the questions.
To be quite honest, other than Temple Emmanuel and National Council of Jewish Women, no.
Well, and that's a perfectly legitimate answer. When the Soviet Jews came to Denver, you were involved?
Yes. National Council of Jewish Women worked very closely at that time with Jewish Family Service in resettling the immigrants that came in. And we helped, clothe them, we helped find them somewhere to live and food, etc.
So this was in the 1980s, as I recall?
I believe it was.
And these
Yes.
people were coming straight from the Soviet Union? Did they fly directly into Denver and then you
That I don't remember, if they came directly here. But quite a few did come here.
Do you have a sense of how many there were altogether?
I really don't.
But several families at least?
Mm-hmm.
And
Yes.
what kinds of practical help did you give them?
Well, like I said, we helped find them someplace to live. And we helped them with groceries and helped them, if they needed to find a school or whatever. Just all basic needs.
So you would be helping one particular family over what period of time? A week, a month,
Probably
year?
a month,
Uh-huh.
that's my guess. Like I said, it's been so long ago. But yeah, so like I said, we work closely with Jewish Family Service.
And they were, for the most part,
Mainly Russian Jews at the time.
right, but they were of working age so that they needed to find jobs when they arrived?
Yeah, I believe most of them were.
And most were families?
There were single people, but there were families, yes.
And did you develop personal, lasting relationships with these people?
There were a couple that I did.
And did they talk about their experiences and how difficult it was for them to leave the Soviet Union?
Oh, at the time, I'm sure they did a lot. I mean, what they told me, I don't remember, to be honest with you. Like I said, it's been so long ago.
Right. I'm thinking about what I've read
Yeah,
about how so many people had to quit their jobs or were told they couldn't work
Right.
anymore once they announced that they wanted to leave. And
exactly, yeah.
it was a
I
struggle.
mean, it was not easy for them, for sure. But they seemed to do well once they were helped in the United States.
And do you remember if you connected them to different congregations here, or were they not interested really in religion?
Honestly, I don't remember ever having anything to do with the religion part.
Okay. Is there anything else
Okay.
you'd like to add about that experience?
No, like I said, it was just very interesting working with Jewish family at the time, helping to resettle them.
And it was fulfilling work
Very
also.
fulfilling to help them, for sure. And I was just trying to think if there was, I think those were the only major things that I wanted to talk about.
All right. Well, I think that pretty much sums up the questions I wanted to ask. I really appreciate your,
Well, thank you for
Answers.
interviewing us. Appreciate it.
it was very, very fun for me, and I'm quite impressed with everything that you've done.
Oh,
So
thanks.
congratulations.
I enjoyed it, believe me, every minute of it.
That's good.
Thank you.
Thank you.